Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Nothing But Bangers, aka MBB, aka Bangers, aka I've got an interesting, potentially meta-changing deck that I'm going to play for you after seeing how it broke out this past weekend. Now, I've got 5 tournaments, all of them with over 200 people, one of them with as many as over 1,000. So I'm going to get to those results and give you those details in this video, along with that little bit of gameplay towards the end. So stick around for that and let's get to it. All right, so I'm going to get straight to the top cuts and kind of show you which decks won each tournament. In this first tournament, we saw a asymmetrical cut. So again, everybody with a certain record got into the second part of the tournament. You can see that Pikachu's took up 3 of the top 4 spots, and a Pikachu Voltorb / Electro deck ended up winning. Now, usually, again, you usually see Raichu able to, have an advantage in the mirror, especially with no Zeb Sniper in the other deck if it's a mirror match. But shout out STARMIE. I know they're very active. Even though we have some debates over pizza, it's a whole nother topic, but very active in the Pokemon Pocket Legends Discord. So shout out to them for winning. And again, as a snapshot of the meta, you can kind of take a look at this and see that for this particular tournament, Pikachu and Raichu did have a very high win rate in terms of percentage, but Pikachu Electro did as well. So still kind of one of those things that, it's a hot topic, right? Like, which version is better right now? But you can see, when you combine all the Pikachus, I mean, that's what this is about. 50% of the meta is Pikachu or Gardevoir and Mewtwo. Heading to the Pocket Legends League. So speaking of the Pocket Legends League, this was a tournament that was won by a deck that I actually featured in my power rankings, ran by Santi Magoob. We just call him Goob a lot of the time. But Goob has been one of the most consistent players in these tournaments, probably has won the most tournaments to this point in the world in Pokemon Pocket. So that's really cool too. They ended up having a mirror match. We got to watch it on stream. And by the way, I do think that I'm going to try my hand at casting some of these tournaments this weekend. So stay tuned to that. That'll be exclusively on the Twitch platform. So, hit me up on Twitch. But this is going to be a Pikachu and Raichu list. In the finals, it went up against another Pikachu variant. And then you can kind of see some of the other decks that popped out in this meta. You can see more Charizard, which is really interesting for this tournament. And then for the metagame breakdown, 32% roughly was Mewtwo. And then another like 23% around there was Pikachu. So over 50% of the meta was Pikachu or Mewtwo. So, again, looking at these win percentages, Charizard and Moltres actually had a pretty high win percentage, right? 57%. And then you take a look at Raichu, 52%, and then Pikachu and Electrode having 53%. And one big thing, I bring these win percentages up. Generally speaking, in trading card games, if you're winning 52, 54% of the time or higher, that's usually really solid. That's usually the sign of a pretty good deck, right? But again, that's just kind of factoring in ladder experience. In tournament, it can be slightly varied a little bit. But again, 52%, 50% or higher is usually, pretty solid deck. Going to Ursi's tournament. All right, so this is where the spice happened. So let me highlight this. So after Swiss, there was an undefeated deck, and this is the deck that I'm going to be playing for you towards the end of this video. So stay tuned so you can check it out. It'll be really cool to watch this. And again, I've played it already. It's a pretty fun deck, pretty good deck, and you'll understand why it had these results in Swiss. But basically, this person went undefeated, and this was the deck list. You'll notice it is a fusion of Charizard and Arcanine. So Charizard takes care of walling off that Mewtwo deck, and then Arcanine takes care of Pikachu in a lot of cases, right? Now, one of the big things that's going to stand out is one Growlithe, even though it is playing, the double Pokeball and then the single potion, the single red card. But again, the one Growlithe is very interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it 100%, but I can tell you right now, I mean, the deck flows. I mean, it flows pretty well. But again, it was really cool to see somebody fuse the deck successfully. If you actually paid attention to the comments last week, we were talking about this in the comments. If you were in the Discord for Pocket Legends, you know, we were actually talking about this deck as well. So it's really cool that somebody was able to get it to work, and you'll see in these next few tournaments the impact that it had, because I'm trying to do these tournaments in chronological order as to like when they happen. So Ursi's tournament was kind of like after the Legends League. So again, that's why you don't see any Charizard Arcanines like really popping off in the other tournaments so far. But in the end, it was a Mewtwo mirror match in the finals. And again, we'll break down some more of those decks later in the week, but this is just kind of meant to give you an idea of what the metagame was like and what the top cut was like. So again, 31%, roughly 32% when you round was Mewtwo, so that's really close to the Pocket Legends League. And then you start tallying up all the Pikachu variants, and it ends up being around 25, 26% if I remember right. So, you know, still like a big chunk of the meta, over 50% of the meta was Pikachu and Mewtwo, right? Just variations of those decks. So now this is where we started to see the immediate impact of this Arcanine and Charizard fusion. What are we calling this? Okay, I'm pretty sure, shout out Mobes. Mobes has been very adamant about calling it Arcazard. Are y'all down with that? Arcazard? Moltrazard? What's a good name? I even did chat GPT names for it. So let me know in the comments, like, what's the best name for this deck? All right, for this Arcanine and Charizard, you know, fusion, right? So looking at this top cut, you can notice that, hey, it ended up just going undefeated. It just swept everything, which is extremely impressive. Like, no matter what tournament, if you go undefeated in a tournament, that's usually like so that's really impressive. And we saw a Goob go undefeated with the Raichu and Pikachu deck that they've been playing in a lot of tournaments. But for a brand new deck to kind of pop out and just sweep, I mean, if you're counting the Swiss record from the other tournament in Ursi's and then this record, I mean, that's like what, 29, or that's like 22-0 or something like that. Obviously, the other person ended up losing in day 2. But anyways, really cool to see this deck pop off. And then you see the normal suspects, right? You see the Mewtwo's, the Pikachus, and then you see a Charizard deck near the top as well. And if you take a look at this metagame, you'll notice that, you know, Mewtwo still taking up 31% of the meta. Charizard Moltres actually had a pretty big chunk compared to some of the other tournaments. But again, you do see a way larger sample size of this Charizard Arcanine deck. You know, almost 5% of the meta. That's almost as many people almost brought, or just about as many people brought Charizard and Arcanine EX, that Arcazard deck, as people brought Pikachu and Electrode. Like, that's crazy, just off of like one tournament performance. So you can see like I just want to point this out. If you're watching my videos or you're watching other content creators, you're probably ahead of the curve, right? You're probably better than the average person that plays this game because you're taking time out of your day, you know, for people like me to be background noise, or maybe you learn some of the information that we kind of, you know, take from these small pieces of data. And so when you start to see the community immediately pick up a deck like less than 24 hours after the results and immediately start playing it, like there's definitely a competitive side to this game. And it's really interesting, right? So again, even though I did make a little bit of a video last week, I'm sure some other people did too, about how the meta was kind of shifting towards that tier 0 format where it was just 2-deck dominant. This Arcazard deck is probably going to be something that we're going to see for the foreseeable future up into the mini set, because it's a meta breaker, right? It can beat Mewtwo, it can beat Pikachu. So really cool to see that. And again, you look at that win percentage, 54%. It's the highest out of all these other decks that had, you know, over 30 decks, right? Or over 30 players. So very impressive. All right, and then the last tournament that I'm going to cover before I get into some gameplay, you'll notice that it was won by a Pikachu and Electrode variant. What's interesting about this is, you know, when you take a look at this, there was only 7 Charizard Arcanine EXs, right? So this was a smaller tournament in terms of like sample size. And obviously, you kind of have to wonder, you know, why did people that entered this Brazilian tournament not bring, you know, quote unquote, the hot deck of the weekend, right? Kind of interesting. But when you take a look at the win percentage, Pikachu and Raichu just got destroyed, 38% win percentage. You do see dark decks pop up in this, but they kind of got destroyed as well. This was definitely a tournament that Charizard and Moltres, as well as the Charizard and Arcanine deck, you know, did pretty well. And I do want to give one big shout out. Let's see, let's scroll down here. Yeah, I do want to give one big shout out because I did see something that, you know, was funny to me also. But like, big shout out to the person that decided to bring, that's right, STARMIE and POLIWRATH. Right, that's right. They went 4 and 4. But hey, points for creativity, dude. Okay, points for bringing the POLIWRATH to the tournament stage. And you know, hey, you know, it didn't do so hot, but it's all right. You know, you got style points. You got points for bringing a cool deck, right? And what was even more funny to me when I looked at this is they actually got paired against the Venusaur and Executor deck, you know, and it definitely played the base executes. Or the EX executors. So, you know, somewhat similar to the deck that I ran. But again, it was just kind of ironic that that's what they ended up getting paired against. And then the deck list that they used, I'm pretty sure like card for card. Like, I'm pretty sure, I think maybe, yeah, I think that's exactly it. Except maybe one potion. I didn't play one potion. So anyways, really cool. Shout out to POLIWRATH. But let's get to the part that I know a lot of you want to see. Let's get to some gameplay of the famed deck of the weekend, Arcazard. All right, going first here. What is this, a psychic deck? So we'll see if this is, okay, it looks like Mewtwo, potentially Gardevoir is what you would assume. So we're going to fetch Pokeball here, and yeah, honestly, would rather see Charmander, yeah. Definitely rather see Charmander in this matchup, right? Arcanine is not so great into Mewtwo. So this is one of those matchups where you're kind of like, all right, let's hopefully get the Charizard line going and then find a way to tank some hits while we hopefully are able to build up a Charizard to sweep. Looks like they're not playing another basic, so that's kind of interesting. So they just have a loaded hand and they've already used a research. So obviously red card, you know, would be fantastic, but you know, hey, we can't always be lucky. And it looks like our Moltres is going to start to get pressured immediately. This is not ideal because, like, obviously I'm flipping tails, but it's also not ideal because, like, this is not what I want to go into. I'm going to be able to chip the... Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be able to chip the... I got one more flip, right? So I'm going to be able to chip the... I'm going to be able to chip the Mewtwo. So... I mean, at this point, like, I have to probably plan on going Arcanine, is what I imagine. So they've already used both Oaks and both Pokeballs. So obviously, a red card would be fantastic. There's 7 cards to my 10 cards. But yeah, you just got to assume, you know, red card would probably be a pretty good card to draw. Especially because they're probably going to start evolving on curve by the look of things. So now we can go ahead and go into Arcanine. In theory, yeah, I'm better off going ahead and getting this Charmeleon going. So we're not flipping a lot of heads, and that's just kind of like the nature of the game. Sometimes, like, you're just not always going to flip heads. Like, sometimes, like, you're never going to flip heads, and that's just kind of, oh well, what you can't really do too much. And then here comes, like, the double Curlia and to the double Gardevoir, and I really can't do anything to stop it. So, unfortunately, that's just kind of the game that I'm playing. Yeah, so they're definitely giving all the signals of they have the Gardevoir. So every classic signal of I have Gardevoir is what they're sending. And so I'm just going to go ahead and potion and then red card and hopefully get the Gardevoirs out of their hand. I mean, they're going to have like over 10 cards in their deck, right? So, hey, I mean, there's a chance that they don't draw the Gardevoir, but obviously if they do, makes the game a lot more complicated. But, you know, all you can do is play the cards that you draw. Oof. So we are 2 for 9 in our flips. Pretty tough. But we do have Charizard and Arcanine built up. I have 8 cards in deck. They didn't slam the Mewtwo down. That's kind of interesting, Sabrina, right? Or they didn't slam the Gardevoir down. So we're oh, wow. Okay. Well, I guess the red card got there. So a Charmander start. Not great. Going second. So it could be worse, right? But if this is Pikachu, you want Moltres and Growlithe. Like, that's 100% where you want to be. And this is definitely Pikachu. So this is Raichu and Pikachu. And they already have 2 basics. So Pokeball gets them Pikachu EX, and they have probably an ideal start. So not good for us at all. So we need X Speed and Moltres. X Speed and Moltres. Okay, well, that's certainly not what we needed. But hey, at least we had Charmeleon. Man, this hand is really bad. I mean, 2 Moltres. Oh, hey, red card. 2 Moltres and a Growlithe. So 3 out of the 4 results would have been good. Unfortunately, we got the worst one. Did they even... Okay, they did attach an energy. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's just no reason to red card, right? Not for me. If I red card, I'm giving them a chance to make their, like, fix their hand. So red card probably going to be dead for this game. That's what I would assume. Oh, they're just going to build up Zapdos and coin flip me? Word. So they're going to try to coin flip me. Because they probably have X speed, right? So they just X speed and put in the Zapdos and start coin flipping me. So I actually do need to hit some heads here. Alright. I mean, it kind of does stink. It feels like a lot of my coin flips for these games haven't been great, but I mean, it's just the way it is. Yeah, here's the X speed coming, and then they're just gonna try to coin flip. I mean, it may work, dude. 3 heads. I mean, I just flipped 2 tails. I just flipped 33% heads. So opponent flipping, 75% would be pretty tough. The bad thing is, I didn't have an Arcanine in my hand, so it's not like I could really. It's not like I could really go into another attacker. Like, I couldn't put the energy blindly on the Arcanine, and I still wouldn't be able to attack this turn. Okay, so basically I need to count on flipping 1 heads and put it on the Charizard. If I flip on 2 heads, I can put it on the Arcanine, so that way I can be able to retreat next turn. Yeah, I mean, 2 heads would be great, right? 0 heads, I'd probably lose the game. Okay, so we got 1. Okay, we got 2. Okay, cool. Yes, I believe that's the way to go. So I need to be aware of Raichu. So they Sabrina. So they're going to need to have 2 Sabrinas, right? Like, that's the only way that it really matters. And obviously they could completely low roll here. But I'd rather them flip 4 heads, man, if I'm honest. Get those 4 heads out of the way. I don't want you to low roll. There it is. So they're just flipping nothing but 50%, right? Nothing but 50%. So I just send in Charizard here. I just put another energy on it. I can slap down a Moltres because it doesn't matter. Right, like I'm not going to build another Charizard. And then I'm just going to Crimson Storm. I'm going to assume that they're going to not Raichu. I'm going to assume that they're going to Sabrina me again. And then I'm just going to have to retreat. But the thing is, they can't have 3 Sabrinas. Can't have 3. That's illegal. Yeah, there's the double Sabrina. Oops. And I mean, I could have red carded, but I don't think that that was necessarily the right play either. Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, hey, I just go ahead and retreat here. Obviously, X speed would have been game. But hey, we don't draw nice things. We haven't played a single X speed this entire game. So that would have been nice. But hey, sometimes that's going to be what happens. So we just switch back in after soaking up that damage. And we slash for 60, and now they have to retreat. And they can't win the game because there's no way that they can even high roll me. So I think this game really kind of demonstrates like how this deck can be played. And I think that like the other games have too. I tried to showcase like a couple of matchups against like the better decks, but hey, let's finish this up and talk about the deck. So overall, I do think that this deck is very powerful, and I do think that we are going to see a lot of it. In my opinion, this deck might be what puts Pikachu in check and really makes Mewtwo players go back to the drawing board as to how they want to build their decks. Will the Mewtwo decks go to 6 basics? Because if they are playing 6 basics, that gives them room for Jinx as well as base Mewtwo. So they're still addressing the Pikachu matchup with the base Mewtwo, but now they can also have the ability to pile up some damage or chip some damage in a one prize attacker with Jinx for very cheap as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see the response to this deck, but I do expect to see a lot more of it. This deck is for real. Arcazard is the real deal, and I can't wait to see how this weekend's tournaments play out with it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think we should be calling this deck. What's the good name for it? I think Arcazard is pretty good. Shout out to Mobes again. I do think that that's a great name. And if you want to see me cast some tournaments this weekend, hit me up on my Twitch. It's up there. It's up there. It's up there. And then as always, I appreciate you guys for taking time out of your day for me to be background noise and maybe a little entertainment. Maybe you learned something, but it's always appreciated. You guys are what makes this fun to do, and I look forward to catching you in the next one. Peace.